Are you a parent navigating the complexities of co-parenting, family court, or even domestic violence? If you are looking for ways to help protect your children and build a strong and supportive community around you, then look no further. Gray Minds Think Alike is your go-to resource for everything related to the complexities of family life. Join us as we dive into thoughtful conversations with experts and explore practical tips and strategies for tackling the challenges of parenthood in the throes of adversity so that no parent feels alone and every child's safety is protected. Welcome back to Gray Minds Think Alike, where we dive deep into the conversations that matter most with experts who enlighten, inspire, and empower. Today, we're exploring a side of healing that often gets overlooked, men's mental and emotional health, because the truth is, healthy families start with healthy parents. When men are disconnected, struggling in silence, or carrying unhealed trauma, it affects everyone around them, especially their children. Our guest today, Jason Lange, is a men's embodiment coach, group facilitator, and certified No More Mr. Nice Guy coach who helps men find purpose, emotional awareness, and a deeper connection. Jason believes that every man deserves support and that men's groups can be life-changing spaces for growth, accountability, and transformation. Together, we'll talk about the loneliness epidemic, the cost of emotional suppression, and how men can rebuild strength through vulnerability, creating safer, more loving relationships and homes. So thank you so much, Jason, and welcome. Your work focuses on helping men open up emotionally. We love that. Why do you think this is such an important piece in creating healthy families?
Yeah, so I've worked with hundreds of men at this point. I'm a father of two myself, and if there's one theme I often get from men is that they feel burnt out, burdened, overextended. I have so much hanging on my plate. I'm trying to take care of my wife or spouse, take care of my kids, work and provide. And the culture we're raised in as men teaches us and keep that all inside. So don't ask for help. Don't ask for support. Definitely don't show any kind of vulnerability or weakness. And this starts from a pretty young age. So particularly as we age as men, we're fried. We're burnt out. Sure. And a lot of the very things that make a man healthy and attractive to initially even bring a partner into their field, right? Taking care of themselves, have passions and interests. What I've seen a troubling pattern for so many guys is it's the first thing they let go of once they get into a relationship, and then particularly once they get into a family. And there's this feeling, I need to take care of everyone else first, which is a beautiful impulse, right? To provide in that way, but often leaves the man then suffering inside, quite literally at a nervous system level. Fatigued, stressed out, not getting enough sleep, sometimes reactive or depressed. And guess what? That shows up right in the family system. The state of our nervous system as a man and a father is one of the greatest indicators of the wellness and the state of the family nervous system. So if we're not resourcing ourselves, our family's going to feel the stress and pain of that. And it teaches a very simple lesson to our family, unfortunately, which is don't take care of yourself. If I, as your father, am not taking care of myself, I am actually transmitting a lesson to you. And that has some pretty huge consequences in just at a relational level then. Two, what it does is it often puts so much pressure on the intimate relationship because now someone is my lover, my best friend, my co-parent. Sometimes we run businesses together. There's a lot that gets put on that relationship that is more than I think we've ever asked for in healthy partnerships and marriage before. And that's great. But what I've seen is once men start getting connected in these healthy ways to other men, it relieves so much stress on the relationship too. So that'd be my first.
Yeah. Well, I mean, many of our listeners have experienced trauma or they're navigating co-parenting with partners who struggle emotionally. What role would unhealed pain or emotional disconnection play in how men show up in a relationship or parenting?
Totally. I mean, it goes right to the heart of it, both in our intimate relationship and with our kids, right? So in our intimate relationship with a spouse and our partner, any of our attachment wounding that we haven't worked through from our childhood or previous relationships, guess what? It's going to show up in the relationship. No matter how fun it feels at first. Some of that stuff is going to come up. And if you're not resourced as a man to deal with it, it will end your marriage. Oftentimes oh my gosh, this person I used to love so much, now we fight all the time, or I'm not attracted to them, or they remind me of my mother or my father. They can't be the one. And so then we'll get this story that, oh, there's got to be someone else better out there. And then with our kids, right, really the job of a parent is more and more, I'm convinced, to just have a well-regulated nervous system and be deeply present for them. And if we haven't healed our emotionally wounding, it's very hard to do that. And we'll get very reactive. I do this work for a living. I still have my own little tantrums sometimes with my kids. That's something I teach my guys now too. Daddy has tantrums too, which means I hit a point where I couldn't contain and hold myself anymore. And sometimes, unfortunately, that spills over onto you. And so as men, oftentimes from a very young age, we are taught as boys and men to not feel. We're rewarded and actually trained out of our bodies, in particular in our hearts. So, it's changing, it's getting better. And this happens to both genders, but I think particularly to men, the way we parent is different, right? Little boy falls down. Oh, you're fine. You're tough. It's okay. You can do it. Just get right back to it. You don't need to cry about it. Be tough, right? Like that starts at a really young age. And then it keeps going up where particularly our kind of mainstream schooling system, there's a lot of similarities and there's some actual difference in male bodies and female bodies. And young boys, they just need to move. They need to move their bodies. Some basic studies that have come out that the widening educational gap between boys and girls in particular, one of the biggest things they can do to help eradicate that is if you start with 2 hours of vigorous movement, turns out boys are totally fine in terms of sitting and learning. They got to get the wiggles out. They got to get the wiggles out. But most schooling isn't set up for that. Instead, it's sit still. And if you can't sit still, something's wrong with you. You have ADHD, you have a problem. And so what we're actually teaching boys there is whatever's happening in your body, it's not important. Override it with your head. It's more important that you sit still than honor what's happening in your body. And then we become teenagers and we get into the peer space. Our bodies are developing at different times. Locker rooms, all of that kind of hormones. Again, very quickly learn the lesson. If I don't want to be bullied or ostracized, don't give anyone any ammo that might mark me as a target. So keep it all inside. And then we get out into the workforce. And what are we rewarded for in our culture, both men and women, unfortunately? Oh, he works 60, 70, 80 hours a week. He's such a hard worker. He's destroying our bodies in the process. And in the work I do with guys, right, emotion always starts as physical sensation. And so if we're not connected and in our body, guess what? We're disconnected from our emotions. And what happens with so many guys is, again, we're kind of taught this from a young age. No one teaches us how to be in our bodies. No one teaches us what we're feeling in our bodies, let alone what to do with it. So what do most men do when they have an uncomfortable feeling inside? We turn to something outside of us to try to change it. Alcohol, weed, booze, porn, masturbation, you name it. These are the things. Or even overworking, a very common one for guys. But it doesn't actually deal with what's going on underneath.
Band-Aid.
Exactly. Do
you think that's why a lot of cheating happens? I mean, I know it goes both ways because...
Sure, yeah. I would say cheating often comes down to that. Like I'm feeling something inside and I don't know how to deal with it. And no one taught me how to communicate. What am I feeling inside so I can tell my partner about it is often very challenging for a lot of guys, as is increasingly just being able to set healthy boundaries. And so sometimes clients I've had, the way they set a boundary in their relationship is to have an affair. Meaning, I can't do this anymore. I know this will end it. It's not necessarily conscious, but it draws a very strong line oftentimes. Right. But just last piece I'll say about the cost, particularly of the emotional piece, and this does show up in our capacity to be present and actually here in the room with our kids, with our spouses, is when we're not feeling our emotions. The way we do that, so right, if you imagine that 5-year-old boy and he's quite sad or about something and maybe crying, and if I walk up to him and I'm like, stop crying, how he does that is holds his breath, stops breathing, and his body tightens up. So we actually tighten up to hold emotional content inside of ourselves. And these little accumulations build up over time. And lo and behold, we end up using a tremendous amount of energy just not to feel. And that is energy that is then not available for us to be present to the people we care about the most, aka our families.
So how do you get a man to sort of break that cycle to make those changes, but not only make the changes, to recognize that maybe, because I know even in my personal relationships, the man, he probably doesn't think that there's anything wrong.
Yeah, for the challenges for a lot of guys is it does take a crisis of some kind of pain, right? So their spouse is like, I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving. They have some kind of sickness or autoimmune disorder come up. They lose a job. These tend to be the things, unfortunately, that it really often takes for men to wake up and say, what is going on? I need help, right? Just that simple thing is even pushing back against so much default culture for men. The idea that we're allowed to ask for help. I don't know how to fix my marriage. I don't know how to manage my health. I don't know how to be a better parent. I need some help. Oftentimes, it's the crisis I have found that gets guys to start looking and reaching out. And for a lot of guys, it really is their partner says, this just is not working for me. Our relationship is totally offline. I don't feel connected to you. You're not here for the kids. Or if you are, you're too reactive. You get explosive, whatever it might be. There's a whole range, but it's that kind of feedback that often really gets a man to say, hey, okay, I got to do something different here. Or one other thing I'll say is, particularly as kids start to get a little bit older, one thing I do see sometimes having men also reach out and get help is they see their children starting to enact the very behaviors they don't like in themselves. Like, oh my God, he's becoming just like me. She's becoming just like me. And lo and behold, they're like, and it's not always been that great to be me. So I don't want them to do that same stuff I did.
Right.
And one of the most powerful ways
as a parent is to put your best traits into your children.
Exactly. And one of the ways we can start to shift that then, that I do work with men on, is one of the greatest gifts you can give to your children is to heal yourself and to teach your kids that it's okay to ask for help. And sometimes we all need to keep growing in life. And that often will have an impact, because then the problem is not that there's issues or things don't always work. It's that, but it's all workable if we're willing to get help and support. And I tell my guys, one of the greatest gifts you can give your children is for them to see a happy, energized, relaxed father who is in their life and enjoying it. And so it's not selfish to take some time to get support for yourself, because that's what allows you to show up in those ways.
A lot of men, I feel like, getting maybe therapy or support, like sort of as a weakness. Like, yes. I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't need that. That's not for me. That's what I hear a lot.
Totally.
How do you sort of talk someone into maybe thinking of it as self-help and bettering yourself, and maybe not as a weakness, because it isn't a weakness.
Yeah.
We all need help. This is just a person thing. It's not men or women, right?
Totally. What tends to, I have found, engage a lot of men is when we reframe it as, it's not that there's something broken, right, with you. It's, you need some training. Like, it's that simple. You have not been taught certain skills you need to thrive in modern families and relationships. For a lot of us, our parents and generations before, for the father, the deal was, if you were providing, literally, if you were bringing in money and creating some safety and security, that was kind of enough, right? That was enough. That doesn't fly anymore. That is not enough anymore. We are being asked to show up more and be more in our families and in culture. And we need training for that, right? People don't teach men, what's that feeling in my body? What do I do with it? How do I not overreact, get lost in my emotions different times? What is my shadow, and how am I projecting it on my kids, onto my wife? Again, so I talk to them about training and, frankly, effectiveness. You want to make more money? You want to have better sex? You want your kids to still talk to you when they're in their 20s? You got to do this work. Like, it's just that simple. And you will. All those things come true. People will trust you more. You'll feel more regulated in your nervous system, and you'll have a much stronger capacity for communication. And you will live longer. So, in the bedrock, like you mentioned in the beginning of all the work I do, is get connected to other men and stop isolating and holding it all inside. We are social creatures, and men are no different. And we have a whole hormonal system and polyvagal system that is set up so connection teaches our bodies to downshift and feel safe. And the stats are just pretty brutal when it comes to isolation and loneliness, and this kind of what you're naming is the lone wolf mentality, particularly here in the United States. So many guys champion as kind of the rogue cowboy Marlboro. I don't need anybody. I'm tough as nails. Those guys, the harsh truth is they die faster. Heart disease, obesity, addictions, suicides even. Like, the numbers are pretty bleak as to what happens if you keep going down that path. And the most potent thing I say to most men that kind of sometimes wakes them up is, I don't care how tough and strong you think you are, at some point in your life as a man, you will not be able to just push through with sheer force. It could be old age, it could be illness, it could be accident. Something is going to come for us all that at some point is going to require us to actually lean on other people. And the more you can start investing both in those relationships now and building the very vulnerable capacity for many guys I work with, the ability to actually receive when someone offers help to say, thank you. I need it, right? That is such a stretch for so many guys.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of what you're saying even just happens in my life. I had a severe tragedy happen. My 4-year-old son was murdered, and my partner had to sort of take that on. You know, I gave him an out when it happened. We were together 1.5 years at that time. I said, this is your chance to walk away. And he didn't. He's like, I'm not going anywhere. And now we've been together almost 6 years, and I'm sure that he struggles in ways that I don't know, because 1, I'm not a man. 2, I'm not outside of the picture because it was my child. So I see things a little differently. And someone going through that sort of trauma probably bottles it all up inside, doesn't want to talk about it. He feels like he wants to be strong and be the rock for the other person. How do you talk to someone like that and say, it's okay to open up? It's okay to not always be that rock, and let me be that rock for you. How do you ask a man to sort of let you in when it's something traumatic?
Sure. Oftentimes it has to start as an invitation, right? It's not that you have to do this, but hey, check out what's possible here in terms of just a few shifts in how we relate and how we experience our emotional selves. And again, kind of how I tie it together is it actually allows you to be more grounded and more present when you're paying attention to your inner experience and giving it the support and nourishment it needs, and learning to not hold it all alone. Guys often like analogies, and I use some engineering here in terms of just circuits. If you think about, like, when I was growing up, right, the old string of Christmas lights, if one bulb went out, the whole string of lights didn't work. And that's what a lot of modern men fall into. And I got to always be tough and be the provider. I have to be the one holding it all together. The problem with that is if they get burnt out, their whole family system falls apart, right? So the idea is, by getting into a men's group or getting connected to community or working with coaches or therapists or whoever speaks to you, you start to have other people that can hold you while you hold your family. That's it, right? Sometimes we all need to be held. Support for the structure. Sometimes we need to put the oxygen mask on ourselves first. And so what I tell people is you will become stronger. And it even goes beyond just resilience, this idea I can survive anything. And what I've seen and experienced in my own life is it moves it to this state of what we call anti-fragility, where the challenges actually strengthen me in my relationships because I have this place to work with the deepest fear or emotional content that might happen. I'm held in it. I can process it. And then, like I said, suddenly I have even more available energy to go back and handle the things in my life because I'm not dissociating or squeezing down this emotion or feeling or whatever it might be. And so it's about vitality a lot of times for guys that says, yeah, you can hold all you want. You can be the tough anchor, but are you dying inside? Like literally, where is your life force, right? If it's all serious, braced, gripping, you cannot survive like that. So getting support and connection, learning to work with our emotions, it makes us more powerful and it allows life force, quite frankly, to come back to us.
Right. Now, you've spoken about the loneliness epidemic among men. How does isolation impact family systems and the next generation?
Yeah, well, I think for a lot of guys, it ties into this idea of shame. And so if something's not working in the family system, or I'm not making enough money, or my relationship isn't going well, I got to hold it inside, which then again becomes this whole piece that I'm avoiding inside myself. And I'm going to do whatever I need to do to not feel that, which for a lot of guys does end up being some kind of porn addiction, alcohol, weed, something they're doing. And the really challenging thing with a lot of guys I work with is it's not that they don't even have male friends, but they might go out and spend a whole day with their buddies, come home, their buddies don't even know their wife's about to leave them, right? Because it's like, I can't talk about that. They know my wife, they know the friends, so they keep it all inside. So again, what it does to men is it keeps everything inside and we clench, right? We clench up our bodies. We get rigid. We get reactive. And when we're not feeling that emotional content inside us, most of us have probably experienced in some capacity in a man, other things start to trigger that unfelt emotion. So if I'm feeling resentful in my relationship or like I don't have any power and someone cuts me off in line, suddenly that little infraction is tying into all that unfelt emotional content I have, and maybe I explode in rage. Or if my wife gives me a little bit of piece of feedback, instead of it just being, okay, I hear you, I totally collapse into my shame. And these things tank men. And so learning to handle them, again, it's very simple. It makes us more available and more present in our lives, and we can actually handle more. This is the paradox. They think, oh, if I avoid it, I'll be tougher. No, when you go straight to it, when you handle it, when you process it, when you metabolize it, that's what actually allows you to have more energy and presence in your life, because then you're not wasting it all trying to avoid this emotional content or fear, anger, shame, whatever it might be, grief.
So what are some like early signs or signs that a man might be struggling and not expressing it? What can a woman maybe look for in their man?
Totally. You know, if he's isolating, if he keeps falling into the same patterns over and over. So let's say, you know, most couples have some kind of relational dance. It's this thing that plays out. It's like watching a train wreck. He does this, so I do this. And when I do this, he does this. And a lot of times men will be loath to admit it, but they get the pattern. They're like, oh my God, this is the moment I'm going to walk away from her. And I know exactly where this goes. We're not going to talk to each other for a day and a half. It's going to feel icy cold in the house. And at some point, one of us is just going to get so tired of it, we'll like bridge the gap or something. But it's when we see these patterns over and over, we know we don't want to do them, and yet we keep doing them. That is a huge red flag in terms of a man needs some help, right? He keeps going down the same cycle over and over and over again. And, you know, is he depressed? Is he listless? How's his libido? Is he on a ton of medications? Like, these are things that are often the downstream effects of men not feeling enough connection and support, particularly with other men in their lives. And I would say, you know, again, it's what does he keep hidden? What is he unwilling to talk about? You know, particularly for feminine partners with a man, often the challenge is I feel like I am feeling him more than he feels himself. And that doesn't feel safe, right? I walk into the room and I'm like, are you okay? You seem a little, no, I'm fine. That's a red flag, right? When a man can't even be aware of his own inner state or what's happening in his body, it means he just needs some help. Not broken. There's nothing wrong with him. Like I said, just means he needs likely some training and some capacity to just have a space to bring his burden, right? That's the thing. A lot of guys, I don't want to be a burden to anyone else. I don't want to call up my buddy because I'm feeling sad. I don't want to ask you as my partner to handle this. And guess what? If no one else is holding our burden, then we keep swallowing it. And it's like poison for men. So we want to find people that we feel comfortable sharing our challenges with.
Okay. So piggybacking onto that, a lot of our listeners are involved in domestic violence and family court spaces. We see the fallout of men not having emotional tools or support. How can men's groups create a safer, more accountable path for healing and growth?
Yeah. So one of the great gifts of men's groups, I say, is they help us learn to slow down and connect to our direct felt body experience. So what a good men's group will do is it will actually help you become aware of what's happening in your body and your heart. And until you have that awareness and language for it, you have very little control. So most men walk through the world being had by their emotions, meaning their emotion takes over and it runs them, versus a men's group is one of the key places where you can learn to build the capacity to not be had by your emotions, but have them. I have anger right now. I'm feeling grief right now. I'm feeling a lot of fear about this appointment next week. Simple shifts like that are actually completely life-changing for a lot of men. And what a good group is going to do is it helps with the two axes I talk about. Of one, there's a place for you to go when you need support. When you can no longer hold yourself, other men can hold you, right? Where you're allowed to fall apart.
So it is a group
hold it all
setting.
Together. It is a group setting. And not only do you have a place to go when you need support, but you have a place full of men who know you, know your patterns, know your story, and know what you want in life, and are going to lovingly hold you accountable. So if you are not stepping into your life in the way they know you're capable of and what you want, they're going to lovingly call you in. Like, hey man, I see what's happening here, and I know you don't want that. I know you don't want that. So what do we need to do here to shift that? And those two things can be quite transformational for men, along with that's one of the primary spaces I've experienced and now seen men experience where they can get the first-hand embodied experience that rewrites their story about what emotions are. When you're present with another man and you see him, for some guys, fully connected to his anger, fully in touch with where he's angry in his life, but he feels completely safe. That can transform the man's life. I didn't even know that was possible. All I ever had modeled for me was unconscious aggression. The way you just stood there and expressed that cleanly and didn't feel dangerous. Wow, now I have a path. Or same thing with something like grief or shame. We see a man allow himself to feel the heartbreak of his life in that moment and not totally get knocked offline by it, fall into collapse, but also not posture and pretend it's not there, but be there. My life hurts right now. I'm losing my kid. I'm losing my wife, whatever it might be. And I don't know what to do. And he takes a deep breath. That changes the story for men too of, wow, actually, my experience of that guy is not that he's weak. Seeing him feel at that depth, wow, that guy's actually really strong. I don't know if I could do that, right? And it starts to kind of spread through the group in terms of what is possible and what real strength looks like, which is really our capacity as men to be present fully with whatever's actually happening inside ourselves and our lives. And in a group, we get to see that firsthand.
Right. Now, do you think like maybe some of men's avoidance or patterns that they have as adults maybe stem from like childhood or inner wounds that maybe they don't even know about? And it could be something really small, but just a lot of patterns that we go through in life develop as children or stem from children.
Yeah. Inner child work is often something I'll do in men's groups. It's one of those kind of wild things where, again, the power of being in a group is suddenly often men will start to see this interesting pattern of how, wow, I will talk to myself in brutal ways I would never talk to another man, right? The way I actually treat myself, I would never treat another man like that or another person like that. Where does that come from? And lo and behold, that almost always traces back to our childhoods, our early attachment wounding.
Yeah.
And whether it's a father, a brother, a mother, whether it's friends in that adolescent age, the challenge with men's group for some guys is the greatest wounding they received was actually from other men who made fun of them for emoting or showing vulnerability or being playful or whatever it is. So these patterns, they hold strong. And what often gets very quickly surfaced in men's groups I lead is that, right, all of us, it's not right or wrong, it's just what happens. When we're young, we learn to adapt to our family system. So we build a certain type of armor to help us navigate our life. Looks different for everyone, but that happens. The trouble with that is as we become adults, that very armor that protected us as kids is actually what prevents us from getting the connection we want as adults. So it's like we put on the iron suit and it was great when we were kids, but now we're adults and we're like, why don't I feel connected to anyone? And why doesn't my wife feel connected to me? Yeah. And literally, I can't move. I can't breathe. I feel like I'm dying. And so a group is one of the places where we get to delicately unwind that of, hey, it's not that, this stuff was bad. It's you learned it at a time in your life where you needed it. But guess what? You don't need it now. You're not a 5-year-old boy who has no power over his life. You're not going to be stuck. You can make choices. And we get to start to update those narratives and learn to hold and take care of our inner children. So becoming aware of those patterns is incredibly important and useful.
I think that's the
hardest
part.
Lo and behold, just like an intimate relationship, the thing with men's groups is whatever that pattern is, it'll start to play itself out in the group too, right? You overreact to things. You never share what's going on inside. You always have the right answer. There's just so many different things. And the group will start to see it like, hey, you're kind of doing that thing right now that you do. And he's like, what do you mean? Well, you just did it. Oh, wow. Light bulb. Now I can see it. Because that's the beauty of, groups in particular is, I mentioned shadow work, this idea that shadow is really just the parts of ourselves that were so wounded. We kind of buried them underground. And then we created whole ways of being to hopefully never have to feel that way again.
Right. And
lo and behold,
many men don't even know that they have a shadow or things that are, they're like, no, I'm fine. I had a great child.
Well, because that is one of the phrases. Now I can tell you when I hear a man say, I had a pretty good childhood, to me, that it actually is a red flag. Because then what I start to uncover with them is the things they just weren't paying attention to. And again, it doesn't mean your parents were evil or bad, but no family can give you everything you need. And you just need to be conscious of what you didn't get because you're going to be playing out wounding around that as an adult. And the whole thing with shadow is you're like, like, hey, Jason, you got a big shadow there. And I'm like, what do you mean? Looks fine to me, but you can see it no problem, right? That's the whole gift of these kind of relationships and why so many men, turns out what I have found when we get under the surface, they are actually longing for the care of other men who will do what I call the spinach in the teeth moment of, hey, dude, you realize you got a big piece of spinach in your teeth you've been walking around with all day? And at first it's like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. And then there's, why didn't anyone else tell me? You at least love me enough to tell me. Thank you. And suddenly I actually trust you more. And that kind of loving confrontation, as Terry Real calls it, carefrontation, when men start to relax into that of, oh my God, these guys are actually looking out for me and will call me forward when I'm not showing up in the ways I want. It
and I think in a friend group,
so much.
In a friend group, a guy would be out with his friends having a beer and maybe he had spinach in his teeth. He'd joke about it and be like, get the fucking thing out of your mouth, or, rather than being supportive
totally.
and like, hey, just so you know.
Yeah, you do this thing, right? You do this thing. Or you told me you didn't want to get into this kind of relationship again, right? The last 6 weeks you've been coming in, you've been checking in. It sounds like you're getting into that kind of relationship again, right? Like, to just be really frank, like, what's going on here? Are you aware of it? Is it real? And we need that as men. The feeling that we're being tracked by other people who care about us is so transformational for guys, because suddenly it's, I don't have to figure it all out by myself. I have allies. It's that simple. I have allies, right? I'm part of a team now. And when we're part of a team, we can often get more done of the things we want to.
And sometimes what you said before, how, men don't even realize, they had a great childhood. That's a red flag, perhaps. Sometimes things that, they're lacking as an adult, they don't even know they're missing, if that makes sense.
100%.
Like, let's say a family, maybe they grew up without a parent and whatnot, and they didn't have a certain type of bond with someone. Well, they're not gonna miss it as an adult because they never had it.
It's so true. I was just leading a retreat for men this weekend, and it's one of the most wild things I see is when men realize how much they weren't even aware of how much they were craving love from the masculine, which is a very different energy than we can get from women and partners in the feminine. Yeah. But most guys have never experienced it, so they don't know what it looks like. So instead, they try to get all of that met from their romantic partner, and it just doesn't work. It's a different kind of energy. Yeah. And when we start to get resourced in that way as men, it actually liberates us to be totally present in a different way in our relationship, and to be able to show up with our kids even in a different way and rewrite some of these narratives. So yeah. And again, it's one of those things that the power of the group, oftentimes different men have very different experiences, and a man will be talking about his relationship. Let's say, I've seen this time and time again, and another guy's jaw will be on the floor. Like, what do you mean? You had a disagreement and you guys talked about it and you got through it. Or what do you mean? You showed up and she had already handled the so-and-so, It's like the frog in the boiling pot thing. So many guys get stuck in this one vibration. That's all they know. And they don't even know what is possible, let's say, in a healthy relationship where both partners are taking responsibility for their own wounding, getting support, getting connection, and create a reciprocal relationship where I put energy in and I get energy back. That blows the mind out of so many guys I know whose relationships are actually like a mini war, where the source of their deepest connection is actually the source of their deepest stress. That just being in relationship with my partner is keeping my nervous system in fight or flight. And when they start to experience that other men have different experiences, they're like, what? I didn't even know that was possible. How do I get that? And it kind of kickstarts a whole growth journey of how do you change your current relationship, or sometimes how do you have to change your relationship?
Now, what would you say the differences are between, let's say, a group versus therapy with a psychologist or whatnot?
Yeah, totally. I think they're extremely complementary, but they are different. So a therapeutic relationship, what I often see and have experienced is it's a very safe way to start to repair our attachment wounding. Because the whole point of working with a therapist or even a coach to some extent is what I call the direction of attunement. I'm going in there and the therapist is spending the whole time attuning to me. They're not supposed to be saying, my relationship's falling apart. What do you think I should do? It happens. I've heard crazy stories, but the whole idea is this is a place where I get to practice going, having someone hold attention for me, care about me, etc. And it's just a one-on-one thing. And it often can reinvigorate and change that kind of attachment wounding. A group is different because it is a peer relationship. It's about peer-to-peer relationships. relationships, meaning there's times where I'm getting support from you, but also times where I'm giving you support. And it tends to just come at things from a different angle. In a good men's group, the kind I'm really passionate about helping men start is one where they actually own the group, right? Leadership rotates. Every man takes a little responsibility for making it happen. So there's both a giving and receiving, which can heal these peer relationships in a different way that therapy can't quite do, let alone you can't quite have the group experience, right? Many men I work with, like I said, hurt by groups of men. And so they can't really rewrite that story in a one-on-one relationship, but just coming into a space with 8 other male bodies sometimes is enough to start to cause a reaction in their nervous system. But over time, with their right agreements and safety, they get to rewrite that script and like, wow, I actually feel totally safe here in a way I've never felt with a group of men before. And there's also just what I call the accelerated learning in a sense of when you have more than one person, everybody's dealing with different things and you just get exposed to so many different things so fast. Where in some of my groups, right, guys at the end of the meeting are like, it wasn't even the support I got today. It was hearing about so-and-so's thing made me realize I didn't even know that was a problem for me. I wasn't even aware of it. But the way he talked about his relationship with his son and what was playing out, suddenly it connected all the dots for me. And again, you don't necessarily get that in just a one-on-one therapeutic relationship. So in a lot of ways, we get to do some very deep healing with our therapy and one-on-one. Then we get to kind of bring that to a group where we get to practice these different tools, practice how we're showing up, practice asking for support, and building these safe peer connections.
Got it. Now, are there ever like couples groups where men and women can talk up freely and sort of learn from each other?
Yeah, my wife and I do these kinds of things for couples because you can learn a lot about what's going on in the exact same ways. The truth of it is, I say, is we all need all of it. So ideally, for a relationship to really kind of thrive, what I have seen is in the case of heterosexual relationships, which I mostly work with, the man needs to be getting support from other men and taking responsibility, whether through a therapist or whatever, to work his own wounding. The feminine partner needs to do the same thing. She should be getting support from other women, and she should be taking responsibility for whatever kind of healing or wounding needs. And then, as a couple, you have to be getting support and taking responsibility for wounding. So kind of co-ed groups can be extremely powerful as well. And again, where we just get to see the biggest change I often see in any kind of group, whether it's a men's group or a couples group, is that light bulb moment where it's like, I thought we were the only ones messed up like this. Turns out they're struggling with it too. And that in itself is often so relaxing that we're not uniquely broken or doomed. These are challenges we all
have exactly the same issue.
Exactly. And oftentimes they'll have worked through some of them and then can become allies of like, oh yeah, when our son was born, here's how we handled the dishes. And you're like, that was about to destroy our relationship, right? Thank you. That's an incredible tip. Now we can use those kind of pieces get exchanged in groups, whether it's a co-ed couples group or a men's group. These things really, really matter.
For sure. I mean, you definitely learn more by actually sharing stories and whatnot, because just knowing that there's someone else on your level makes it valid.
It's so relieving and relaxing.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, whether it's, again, couples, or I see it a lot in men's groups, particularly men who are navigating divorce or their family's changing pace, to get connected to a man who's on the other side of it. Like, yeah, I did it. Like I left my partner, it wasn't working, or it was so hard. I felt like I would never recover when she left me, and I did it. I'm on the other side of it, and my life's actually good. My kids still love me. I actually have a great relationship co-parenting with, and sometimes, quite frankly, a better relationship with my ex now that we're just co-parents, and all the intimacy isn't having to get in the way of that. And guys are like, wow, you mean this doesn't have to mean it's the end of my life? No, like there's lots of ways to work with this when you get resourced properly, and your kids can be okay. And, this is where they start to get inspired of, oh, okay. And I got someone to talk to about how he navigated that road. And again, that kind of support is so useful for guys who, again, used to just keeping it all inside. I can't ask for help. I got to figure it out.
Yeah. Now, this is a 2-part question, but I guess what advice would you give a man listening today who wants to become emotionally safer partner partners or fathers? And then 2, for the women listening, how could they encourage the men in their lives to seek help or join a group without sounding like criticism or blame?
Yeah, totally. For the emotional piece, it's, you need training.
Right.
Like, it's just that simple, right? It will not fix itself. Most men who are like that experienced a parent who were like that and know what it's like to be around someone who can't regulate their nervous system. And again, sometimes it kicks in that kind of protector vibe for fathers in particular of, if you want to teach your kids to do it differently, guess what? You have to do it differently. The fastest way they're going to learn is by seeing what happens in your nervous system when intense emotions come, etc. And the more you show them that you can be resourced without having to dissociate or without having to get taken over by it, guess what? They're going to thrive. They're going to love that. And I think it's one of the greatest gifts we can give our kids as parents is just teaching them what's going on in their bodies and how to work with it. And guess what? We can't teach them that if we don't know what's going on in our bodies and how to work with it. So it's very powerful skill building and capacity there that you just want to do as men. Life gets better on the other side. And again, one of the real ways we'll often see it is spouses, children, coworkers. They will trust you more. They will trust you more the more that they can feel you're able to be with and contain your own emotional experience. Again, it's not that we pretend like we don't have it, but it also means we're not getting totally overtaken by it. We can do that simple thing of, I'm feeling really sad right now. I'm feeling so sad that this thing isn't going to work out. And I'm just being with that. It's just like amazing. And then in terms of spouses, I think one thing that I often see men are just dying for is appreciation, even if they're failing.
Sure.
So they might be trying to do something or working really hard and then it's not working. And one way to the masculine heart is, I see how hard you're trying. I want you to know, I really see how hard you're trying. And I really want to honor you for that. And I'm realizing, right, as your spouse or partner, I think there's certain things I can't give you that you deserve because I just don't know what the experience is like. And so, I had a thought, like, I wonder what it'd be like for you to get resourced by some other men who could really get how hard it is for you to be trying to hold this family together.
You needed to go talk to someone.
Yeah. Go talk to some. So, have you ever thought about, I've heard about these things called men's groups and It's not that things are broken. It's just, I want you to feel even better. And I'm realizing
very
I can't always do that for you. Yeah. I can't always do that for you. And I want you to thrive. Right. I want to be able to show up for you and I want you to be able to show up for me. And I'm realizing while I think I know how much burden you're holding or stress you're under, it's just different because I'm different. So I would love for you to find some guys who really fucking get it, right? Who really get how hard it is. And I feel like that would make our relationship even stronger, So lots of ways to kind of introduce it, but.
Yeah, definitely. I used to study like attachment styles, like the avoidant and the anxious heart and all that. And I know trying to get that avoidant or whatever on or both of you on the same level is very difficult. One's always running, the other's always chasing, but it can happen. Transformations can happen.
Totally. And one of the sweetest ways my wife's called me farther into the relationship, and I've learned to call her in sometimes, is also if I bring something like, if my partner brought something to me like, hey, I feel like a men's group might be good for you. I was listening to this podcast and I heard it. You could listen to it. But what's really underneath that for me, honey, is I want even more of you. Like I want even more of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want even more of you. It's not that you're broken. It's just, I want more. And I want you to be even more resourced to be able to bring it to me. Like I want you. I'm in, right? And I want us both to be thriving. And then, if you compare that with, and here's how I'm realizing I could probably get some more support. And if we both got more support, just think of what's possible for us.
Sure. Now, what's one daily practice, men could use to stay grounded and emotionally connected? What's one thing that they can do just at any moment?
Connect to your breath. I mean, it's the simplest thing that I teach. How am I breathing right now? For most men, for most of us in our culture these days, it stops right here. Shallow, upper chest. And it keeps us in that kind of fight or flight, engaged, sympathetic, activated state. And just becoming conscious of, how am I breathing right now? Am I breathing into my belly? Is my front soft and relaxed? can completely change things. It is in the work I do with men, when we mentioned embodiment, you can become a leader in your relationship, in your family, in your job, just by how you breathe. You can completely change the state of a room just by how you breathe. But you got to be conscious of it, and you got to actually take the time to do it. And if you do that, even just a couple minutes a day, you can completely downshift yourself.
That's for sure.
Yep. Get out of your head, get more into your body, feel more relaxed and grounded. And like we talked about, the more relaxed and grounded you are as a man, the more relaxed and grounded your family system, your partnership, etc., are often going to be.
For sure. Now, okay, let's talk about you and what you offer. Can you tell us how we can find you, what your services are, what you offer, and all that good stuff?
Sure, yeah. Easiest way to keep up with me is at my website, evolutionary.men. So it's not .com, but it's .men. And on there, I have my own podcast where I kind of talk about all these kinds of stuff, particularly talk a lot about men's groups, why they're useful, that kind of practicality. And then, I work with men. So I work with men one-on-one, but my sweet spot, what I really love is working with men in groups. So I lead all kinds of men's groups. Some of them are programs around dating and relationships and communication. Some are around that deep inner healing and shadow work. Some are just get you connected to some other guys and get in your first men's group and have the experience of what it means to walk through life with allies and support rather than holding it all inside. And all those programs are laid out there along with some of the couples work I do as well. So the idea is you got to get resourced as a man and you got to reach out. And there's ways to work with me in kind of every level of your availability in some sense. And even if you don't work with me, you can hit the contact form on my site. I'm very well networked in the men's work world now. If you're like, I'm trying to find a group, here's where I live, I can point you. I can give you the tips for what to look for and who to look for, even if you're not working with me. Because, like you said, my mission is every man should be in a men's group. And I feel like, in particular, healthy men get in and create healthy relationships, which then can create healthy families and healthy children. And that's how we evolve this whole thing towards more goodness, truth, and beauty.
Do you do one-on-one or is it solely group?
I do. Yeah, I'll do one-on-one coaching work. Sometimes with guys, it's a little bit too big of a jump to go right into a group. And so they want to build a little rapport, get a little vibe. And then I'll be like,
with your groups, do you have to like sort of graduate? Like you said, you do some deeper ones. Do you start with like a lighthearted one and then move to a deeper one? Or could you just jump in at any?
You can dive into whatever you want. If you want to do a live retreat and really go for it, you can come and do one of those.
Where is that?
Throughout the country, a lot in Northern California. We have some in Texas next year. And some of the stuff I do is just virtual as well, which does tend to be particularly useful.
I was going to ask, are the groups virtually?
Most of my groups are virtual right now. I do have some live retreats. And if you're wanting to start a local group, I can help you do that. Particularly for busy fathers, what I found is in that parenting phase, it's actually quite useful to be able to do a meeting from home, go upstairs, finish dinner, whatever that might be. So a lot of guys like that. And again, it becomes a safe way to start to rewrite the narrative around men. And then oftentimes it's like, okay, not all guys are XYZ. They experience that virtually, and it makes it much easier then to step out into the real world and start getting into physical space with guys. So tons of possibilities there in terms of the support you need, and lots of podcasts and deep things about how all of this work can improve your health, your relationships, your financial earning, like you name it. The thing is, you got to reach out as a man, right? You got to take that risk at some point and say, hey, I'm trying to do something different. Think I need a little training. Can you help? And we'll help.
Awesome. Well, I'll put all of your contact info in the show notes. And I really thank you so much for this honest and hopeful conversation, because what you've shared remind us that men's healing is family healing, and that when men learn to express, connect, and grow, their children benefit most of all. So if you're listening and you're a man who's been silently struggling, or if you love someone who is, please visit evolutionary.men to explore Jason's men's groups and programs. Support and connection are available, and that's where change truly begins. So thank you so much. And as always, thank you for joining me on Gray Minds Think Alike. All right, I'll talk soon. I'm sure we can
thank you so
continue
much.
This down the road.
Yeah, totally. Anytime. Just let me know how I can support you and your audience.
Sounds good. Bye, Jason.
Okay.
If there's someone that you want to hear from on this podcast, please feel free to send me an email. Or if you would like to be a guest, please reach out at Allie@Greyson'sChoice.org. If you would like to continue to hear our podcast, please consider donating at Greyson'sChoice.org. Any amount helps to fund our mission to help protect our children.